If you dream of your motorcycle, if your day isn't complete without some time in the saddle, if all you need is the open road and a full tank of gas, well, you've come to the right place, because this is Throttled, and it's starting now. Here's your host, Kevin McKinney.
Hello and welcome back to Throttled, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Everybody in the live stream, appreciate you guys being here. I know we're going to have a fun show for us all tonight. Let's see, who do we have? We've got Larry and Tom with us today. So Larry, how are you doing, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Racing is back on, and I'm full of news about the latest competitions.
All right, Tom, how's it over in Georgia?
It's hot. That's what it is. It's hot here. It's hot Atlanta. Sir, we were talking just before we kicked off that I'm having some AC issues. So my office where I do my, so if I look like I'm like just dripping wet, it's right now about 84 in my office. I'm hoping that things cool down with the little thingies that I did, but I'm also multitasking and trying to get a appointment with our AC service. So other than that, it's been a really good weekend. It was a great weekend up until 20 minutes ago, or 30 minutes ago.
Well, if you disappear, we will be understanding. I, being a fellow Southerner, have lived through the horrors of no AC. And the last time I had to do it for a week in the middle of August, so that was a ton of fun. So.
Yeah, downstairs in the living room, it's fine. So my wife and I she might be on the couch and I may be on the floor tonight because 84 just ain't going to cut it to sleep in.
Yeah, that's not really spooning weather either. So,
hey, listen, it was 50 degrees centigrade trackside on the MotoGP today. Geez. So you think you got it bad?
All righty. Yeah. So, gentlemen, any actual motorcycle riding this week?
You mean riding on a motorcycle with two wheels and?
Yeah, two wheels, handlebar, combustible. Well, you know what? Combustible engine. Given my audience, I know that's a possible factor. So, combustible engine. Anybody do one of those this week?
Tom, what'd you do?
Well, so I did what I had been in the notes there. I actually went to a demo day at a Kawasaki dealership. Never really rode Kawasaki's much, so I got a little ride as far as just half hour or so up to the dealership. Their process for checking in was really unusual, and I only had a few hours in the morning, so I only got to ride two bikes. So I rode a Versus 650, and Larry, is that what you have?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I rode that, and I guess it was a 2020 version, and then the Versus 1000. Wanted to ride some other things, but the way that they were running stuff, the rest of the afternoon was already filled. So that was the only two slots that I got into. So I guess let me talk about the check-in process first, because this was very entertaining. And I guess this is the way that Kawasaki does it. So given the times, you go up, you stand in one line. I got there, so they were opening at 9. I got there right at 9. There was already 25 people in line waiting. So
yeah,
guys were showing up early for this on a Saturday morning. But you go in one line and they check your temperature and they give you a little wristband. Then they send you to the next line. And the next line has you sign the waiver and give your license. So that gets done. Then you go to the next line and you pick a bike and a time that you can ride. So you get that, and you get another wristband that shows the bike and time you're riding. Then you go into a fourth line, which then confirms your ride with another guy that I didn't get that. So it was like 35 minutes just to check in through all of these lines. But they did make mention that once that was done, you only had to go to the last line then to go get a new a new bike time. By the time I got there, the 10 o'clocks were gone. So I jumped on a 10:30 ride, and the only thing that was left was a Versus 650. So I was like, okay, let's give it a try. Have never ridden one of those. I've ridden I don't even think I've actually ridden a Kawasaki at all. So they took us out on about a 20-minute ride loop. Nothing real technical. It was fairly easy. A couple of nice back roads, though, that had a little bit of turns to kind of feel it out. And pace was fair to get an idea of it. My opinion of the bike got better as the ride went along. Coming off of my GS, at first I thought it was a little anemic and such, but
excuse me.
As far as just its general pickup, but then I started getting used to it, and I started winding it out a little bit more.
There you go.
And I started noticing that, okay, going through, once we got to the curves, very flickable through the curves, maintained
Indeed.
the line well, pulled nicely out of the curves. So it wasn't bad. The riding position, I don't know what type of seat they had on it, but it was cramped for me. I would have needed probably another 2 inches of height on the seat to make it decent. The dislike about it, and I don't know if yours does this or if this is something on the 2020s, the throttle. The throttle was horrendous. It was like a light switch on off. There was no way to feather the power like as you came off the throttle and then came back on. It was just a pull. So is that indicative of them, or is that perhaps that bike? I don't know.
Yeah, no, actually, I think that is an issue with the Kawasaki's. My bike is not quite as severe as on off. But if you're not a little bit careful when you first, twist the throttle, it does kind of jerk you a little, and you have to, learn how to regulate it. And for the most part, I can do that with a clutch and also being gentle when I first twist the throttle.
I could see it had to be learned because
Yeah.
I tried it. I thought, at first in the parking lot heading out, it was like, oh my God, this is, can't believe this. And I thought, okay, maybe it's low RPMs. And I was shifting it a little bit at first, but then I started winding it out to 6,000, 7,000, 8,000. And same thing. I'd come off the throttle coming into a turn and come back on. It was like, boom again. So that wasn't it. But that was my real issue with it. Mm-hmm. But overall, yeah, it was nice. So got back from that ride. I didn't have anything else scheduled, but I do my old go up. Hey, anybody not show up? Can I jump on anything? So someone had not shown up for the next ride, and I was able to jump on the 1000. I guess that's the LT version with the
bags.
With side bags.
Yeah.
So this had the throttle response right off the bat was totally different, extremely smooth, just nice, easy. There was no on-off whatsoever.
So is it throttle by wire?
Yeah.
Throttle by wire?
Yep.
Yeah, because I think the 650s are just the old cable.
Cables, okay.
Yeah.
And had a quick shifter on it, and seating position was much better than on the 650. Still would have liked an extra inch or so, but actually it was a nice ride. Definitely still, I felt it was all just as flickable through the turns. Definitely pulled out of the corners, really nice. I will say the thing I loved on it had a quick shifter up and down.
Uh-huh.
And I've got that on my GS. This was how a quick shifter is supposed to work. The GS is the quick shifter on the BMW Boxer engines is terrible.
The new Boxer ones are a lot better, in my opinion.
Mine's an 18. I mean, unless they did something miraculous with the 1250s.
Yeah, the 1250s are, because I rode it on the 15, on the 18. I actually rode an 18, hated it. Rode the 20s, and I was like, still not in love with it, but it's better.
Okay, because to use mine, it's really only useful from third to sixth, and I've got to be on the throttle hard to go up, and throttle's got to be completely shut down to go down a gear, and still it's jerky. Um, on the Kawasaki 1000, it was butter up and down. I didn't go down into first, but from first up through whatever, I think I made it into fourth or fifth, and then down again without playing with, just staying on the clutch. Or staying on the throttle. I just experimented shifting down. It worked perfectly and was so easy. It was like, oh, this is the way a transmission should work. But I've always known that the GSs are just, the transmissions are agricultural. To say it's a tractor, yeah, it is. But I was surprised that it was really neat. I didn't notice this on the gauges until the ride was just about done. But what's really neat is on the instrument panel, as you pull in the clutch, there is a little gauge that goes up and down to show you how much pressure you're applying as you're applying the brake, not the clutch. As you're applying the brake, the little gauge shows you in a bar graph how much pressure you're applying in brake. Didn't notice this while I was riding because I was riding, but once I was at a light and saw that, it was like, wow, that's pretty neat. If I'd known, maybe I would have paid attention to it. But yeah, in general, it was that was a nice ride. It was surprising, nice ride. Then, of course, what I always do when I do demos is that, all right, now that I get the route, I take my bike out and I run the exact same route to see, okay, now let me try my bike on that route and see how I'm pulling. Yeah, still faster and able to take corners much more aggressively than with either bike. But like I say, the both bikes were nice.
So of course you're used to your bike.
I am used to it. Yeah. But just to kind of get a feel as to what it was like, take mine through those same curves.
So what dealership did you go to?
This was Freedom Power Sports in Canton, Georgia.
Yeah, that's what's the mountain? The one with mountain in it.
Mountain Motorsports. They're a kind of a conglomerate that owns a bunch of them. I think Freedom as well is part of a huge chain, but I think that's their only store, at least in the metro area that I'm familiar with. Mountain has 2, 3, maybe 4. I think they closed one, so 3 stores in the Atlanta area.
Yeah, when I test drove the Tenere, it was at Mountain. I went over for that. So
I did. They had a Tenere in the shop, and I did go sit on it. So yeah, it's comfortable. It's a big 1200.
Yeah, it is.
So what are those 2 wires that come? So on the throttle side, on the Tenere, there's these 2 huge honking wires that come out and across the dashboard and head down. I'm guessing those are throttle body wires or whatever, but it just
it's your throttle and clutch.
At the front of the bike.
Not your throttle and clutch, it's your clutch and brake.
Or the brake and throttle, those 2 cables. It's coming off the right hand side.
Oh, the right hand side.
Yeah, but they're like an inch or so raised above. They don't go underneath, and then
they come up and they go down.
Yeah, they come way up, almost in line of sight to the
instrument panel.
Display.
Yep.
Yeah, the instrument panel. That
clutch and throttle.
Yeah, couldn't you figure out how to do that one a little better? But
the routing through there, they've got it really tight until that point, and then that's all the slack. Actually, I think both of those have another disconnect where there's like it's been a while since I really looked at it, but like on there's actually like another disconnect area right as it's heading down behind all the fairing and stuff, I believe. Honestly, I need to look it up again. I'll have to go out and look at my bike tomorrow to check it out, because I just learned to deal with it. I don't even mind them anymore. When I first got it, I was just like, I really wish I could do something with these, but now I've had it for so long, it's not really a big issue.
So, Larry, when you were getting your 650, did you entertain the 1000? Did you ride both back to back at all, or?
Yeah, no, I didn't. And part of the reason for that was that I was really looking for a smaller, lighter, just bike. And so I was really checking out the mid-level displacement bikes, the 800s and the 650s. And I really had decided against getting a bigger bike. Part of the issue there is that I was looking at the ADV style bikes, and with those, the seat heights tended to be pretty much at my limit. Generally they were around 32 to 33 inches, and so I wanted, if I was going to be at my limit in terms of the seat height, I wanted a lighter bike, basically, and I didn't feel I needed the power. I wasn't interested in having a bike that had more power, and that's turned out to be the case for me. The 650 is perfectly adequate in terms of the power it has. And don't forget that it redlines at 10,000, so you have a lot of RPMs to use before you hit the red line. I don't think I've ever gone over 8,000 on my bike.
Okay, yeah, I don't think I pushed it much more than that. That was about it. I wasn't sure. I didn't really know the specs or much about the bike, so it did run very happy in the 6,000-7,000 range.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So for me, that's perfectly adequate. It's comfortable cruising at highway speeds, and it's very nice to ride in the twisties, actually. And so it really fills my needs, and I didn't feel I needed the bigger displacement bike.
Gotcha.
The only thing I miss is a cruise control.
Got it. Yep. And I really didn't get a chance to examine the bikes much between the two as to what features were on one or the other. They did tell us that there was ABS on all the bikes, but that was about it. The biggest difference, like I say, that I noticed between the two, the 1000 was a little heavier, still went through the corners just as well. Definitely more power coming out of the corners, and then the throttle and the quick shifter were just wonderful on that bike. So that was my weekend, guys.
Larry, about what did you get out to do any riding this week?
Yeah, I did. I made a point. I each day I had meant to do a ride in the afternoon, and something came up, and I wasn't able to get to it. But finally on Saturday. Today's Sunday. Yes, Saturday was yesterday. I did get out to do a ride, and it was, we're having beautiful weather now, and so it was a very sweet ride. I did one of my favorite routes. Went up to Nicasio, and then around to the Point Reyes Petaluma Road, and back along San Antonio. It's about an hour and a half to an hour 45-minute ride, and 70 miles or so through the Marin countryside. The weather was coolish, and it was funny. I went to the parking lot. I did about a half an hour of parking lot practice before I started the ride proper, and that always gets me in a good mood. After I do the practice, it just loosens me up, and I just feel so much better on the ride. And I just totally enjoyed the ride. I got into a zone, and it was just beautiful. It was just it reminded me of why I'm riding, and what a treat it is to be able to ride. So even though it was one of my usual routes, it really was for me a special day and a special ride.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, having your old favorite routes, that's why they're your favorite routes, right? They put a smile on your face.
That's right. You got it. What about you, Kev? Did you get out?
Yeah, I actually got out today. got out and did about a 2-hour ride, a little over 100 miles. Just meandered, kind of, head out down 25, which is a pretty curvy road, and then, detoured over near Lake Logan Martin, Pell City, and just kind of wound my way back, little interstate, jumping off the interstate, riding this road because it looks curvy, and then jumping back on the interstate, and then I was like, well, let's swing by over here, and I just kind of tooled around, riding on and off, and didn't stop, and then I didn't get off the bike, I'll say, until I got back to the house. But yeah, just kind of, had a good 100-mile run today, and it was well needed. Definitely after the week I've had, it was I feel like well earned, and looking forward to the next one. We just can't get here soon enough, to be honest with you. I could have rode yesterday. I just didn't have all the dominoes fall into the right place at the right time. So, but that's life right now, right? So just take it and enjoy what we can do, and moving on.
Hey, from our discussion last week, have you made any decisions on a trip for this fall?
I haven't. I'm toying with going up and doing something around, the mountains, North Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina area. I'm hesitant to get my hopes up too much because of the way the virus is trending, to be honest with you. I'm just kind of hedging my bets a little bit, but I am constantly, we could do this, I could do that. I've thought about taking the bike, riding down to Fort Lauderdale and scuba diving for a week and then riding back. But then scuba gear is not really motorcycle friendly. And so I'm trying to figure out how to take, wetsuit, fins, those 2 items in BCD, those 3 items are just bulky and there's nothing you can really do about it. Plus weight, because some of us have our own flotation devices that we need to weigh down.
Yeah, but I think just, other than personal items, like maybe a wetsuit because that fits you personally, everything else can always be rented.
Well, yeah, at the expense of a week is way too much. Plus,
yeah, gotcha.
when you've invested that much money in getting it to your liking,
oh yeah,
you want to use your stuff. And the thought of putting my mouth on somebody else's regulator, nah, not happening. I don't care how long it's set in that disinfectant, is not happening. So, but
well, like I said, consider building a trip. So I just sent a note off to our friends over at Loud Pipes, to Rich and John, and told them I'm confirmed to go to their meetup in October. So got myself a room, and I not staying at the same place that they are, but just
where are you staying?
A mile or a mile down the road. The Lodge at Tellico.
That's where I stayed when I went to the big wood log cabin thing on the river, on the creek.
Yeah, I've never been. So.
Yeah. Are you a light sleeper?
Not particularly, no.
Okay, good.
My wife would say absolutely no, that the house would come down around me before I woke up.
Then you'll be fine. You'll be absolutely... It's a log cabin, right? It's wooden floors with no insulation. Wooden walls with very little insulation. The views are beautiful, but you hear conversations from 2 units down. I heard people snoring. It's like in the middle of the night. It's that guy snoring and this guy snoring and there's somebody else snoring. And it's just like, holy crap.
Well, that was part of my decision for going there, was that I contacted the guys and they told me, I said, what cabins are available because they block the whole place off. They're staying at Hunt's Lodge.
Yeah.
Because I don't sleep in the dirt, as I think I've mentioned before. And there was a bunk bed in a 3-person cabin.
Yeah. No.
And I was like, not sure. And then I looked at the bunk beds and a picture that they had online. It was like, oh, they got footboards. And you and I are similar height. We don't fit on beds with footboards.
No, we don't.
So it's like, yeah, that's not going to work.
Yeah. Well, the ones at the lodge, they've got footboards, but they're low. You should be okay. The mattresses are.
Yeah, they've already given me a room with a bed that doesn't have any footboards.
Okay, all right. I mean, I enjoyed the bed. I enjoyed everything, but just how loud it was when I'm trying to go to sleep, and I had to use earplugs, and I hate using earplugs. But
yeah,
good place. Sitting out on the back porch, with the water flowing, very relaxing. It's good.
Given how much of my life has been spent in hotels, yeah, I could sleep through anything.
Yeah, I wish I had that ability. I used to have that ability, and then something happened. I don't know. I used to be able to sleep through about anything, fall asleep in anywhere. But something happened. Now I'm just like, somebody drops a matchstick 200 yards away, and I'm just like, what was that? So, anywho.
Well, like I say, I and the reason I committed to that was just this past week, the BMW RA rally got rescheduled. So that was due. I was all set for that mid to end of September, and that got moved to May of next year, 3rd or 4th week in May. So.
Yeah, part of my concern right now also is, if I plan a trip, and here, one of my big hesitations to booking something, like I'm trying to get plans going, and I've been told, hey, you need to go. I mean, you want to take a trip. But I'm also looking at the reality of it is, if for some reason they actually cancel school again and my kids have to homeschool again, my wife still has to work. So would they just go stay with my parents for the week?
Gotcha.
And would they be willing to do that for that week? I'm sure my wife would love it, but anyway, we'll get it worked out. We'll get it all figured out. I don't know who all is planning on being at that, but hopefully if you're going, I'm sure it'll be a fun time. They're going to be riding a lot of roads that I would like to ride. And, if I decide to do a street only thing, I may join you guys.
Yeah, so. I needed something to do. 2 of my trips got canceled this year. So I was like, I need to go up there I ride those roads.
Larry doesn't have anything on his schedule. Maybe he could ride out and join us for it.
Yeah, there you go.
That would be cool.
Yeah. So how long would it take me to ride across the country and back again?
Well, it's not just that. So you've got the ride across the country, which I'll give you 4 days for. We're going to spend the time doing that. Then you got to ride back home. That's 4 days. Then you got to spend 2 weeks in quarantine because you came over here to the dirty South.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. So but you're not working. I mean, it's not like you got anything really pressing, any deadline or anything.
I am retired.
Yeah. So you got time to spend in quarantine.
Yeah. That would be fun. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm feeling really itchy. When I was riding yesterday, I was thinking exactly that. I was really feeling itchy to get back and do a big ride. I loved, some of my happiest memories are really riding the West and just having long stretches of road in front of me and beautiful scenery and vistas and just open space. It just felt like the promise had been fulfilled. And I'm really itching to get back to that. But the truth is, the reality is, I don't think it's going to be till next spring. And I think next spring, things will start after a vaccine is disseminated. Things will get back to a semblance of normal, and travel will be able to resume. And then I definitely have a trip on the books.
Yeah, I just wonder. Well, never mind.
Larry,
I hope you're right.
It's about 2,500 miles, so 2.5 iron butts, or and you're there.
I can do that.
I mean, he rode all over like Canada and all that stuff, and I mean, he can pull that off in 4 days.
I've ridden 700 miles in a day. Not iron butt, but
All right. Well, it says it's 30. Google says it is 37 hours.
Okay, so no, who needs sleep, right?
There you go.
Brian would do it.
Now that's a challenge.
Brian would be here at like 8 a.m. tomorrow. I was like, how did you get here? I was like, I just left, packed up and went.
That's true.
A man is a machine, and I love him for it. All right, yeah, he actually sent me a note on Facebook that if I get pulled up, we may share later. All right, so let's actually give a little conversation to a piece of mail that I got that may lead to a interview in the future of some sort. This comes from John. He was listening to episode 235 and wanted to talk about the motorcycle training. John actually does a few things, but we're talking about the coaching tours. He's one of the guys who does them. He believes that the reason most companies don't do the coaching tours, hey, let's go out and ride and coach as you're riding kind of thing, is because of the risk and liability.
Yeah.
Plus, he agrees with us that there's not a lot of demand for advanced training, and there's not an incentive to take the enormous risk associated with on-street training. Because of those challenges, he's actually suspended his Cornering Confidence coach tours at this time. But what he has done, and he was actually on Chris's podcast talking about it, is he created a interactive self-paced online course with the same curriculum. He's got a book called Cornering Confidence, Coach Tours and Track School. My book, Coach Tours. Okay, I think those are three different things. Anyway, it's a new concept, but one that he thinks perfect for this point in time. We may try to get him on, let Chris talk to him a little bit more here, just for you guys that aren't listening to Chris's podcast, and kind of follow up with that. But John, thanks so much for writing in. We will be in touch, most likely, sometime soon. So probably before you hear this, the way things have been going, we'll try to get this out in the next few weeks. So, all right. That aside,
that would be great. By the way, I think I'd really enjoy that, and I'm very interested in the on-street, cornering classes. Eric Tro offered one. He writes an article for one of the magazines, and he has a on-street course that he offered, and they did a segment in Northern California a few years ago. Everything was put on hold because of the pandemic, and also I think he had taken a year off anyway. But a street skills course to me is something that is of great interest to me, more so than doing a cornering class on a track, and I would be definitely up for that. So love to talk to him about it.
Well, we'll see what we can do about that. All right. So let's move into our topic for the day, spend a few minutes on this, and then try to cover a few news articles. And then because racing has started, we're just going to let Larry just go off on that. So
we got racing, folks.
Yeah, trying to give you at least 10 minutes to talk about racing, so before we shut the show down. But the article on Adventure Rider, advrider.com, is titled, "Is Motorcycle Becoming More Tribal?" What does that mean? It's the my type of riding is better than you or your type of riding. And, there for a while, honestly, 2018 time period, it seemed like that stuff wasn't as prevalent as it was in the past, but it seems to have made a resurgence here. And I guess it's because we're all at home and got nothing else better to do but bash on everything else that we're not doing. And we are also guilty of this. We are equal opportunity offenders when it comes to motorcyclists, depending on what you ride and why you ride. We make fun of BMWs. We make fun of Harleys. We make fun of about everything for a reason to be make fun of. Poor MV Augusta doesn't stand a chance. But a lot of it is just in jest. In seriousness, I think all of us do it to poke fun at somebody, but we do it laughing with them, knowing them and their personality. I mean, heck, even when Ted's on, he's also bashing on Harleys, even though he's a staunch defender of Harley. We are just as guilty as everybody else, but I feel like we're not trolling boards trying to cause controversy. We do it, laugh, and then be like, oh, we're just joking. So every time I ask Tom if he's going to a Starbucks, it's in jest. Hopefully that comes across. By the way, how was your coffee today there, man? So the article goes on to say, a couple of examples, Gold Wings aren't real motorcycles. They're lounge chairs for the AARP crowd. Cruisers are only for pirate wannabes from going bar to bar. I don't care. That is funny. The big GS is only ridden by people riding to and from Starbucks. Or they're not real riders. That's not a real bike. They're not really adventure. That's not really an adventure. So...
Well, I would say even within some of the groups, like I catch crap all the time on my current GS because I don't go off road. I've got it set up as a road bike, and
so you get the man. Those tires are awfully clean.
Oh yeah. Oh, there's the street tires. How much? That's the first question as far as anybody looks at a GS. Oh, how much do you go off road? It's like I don't. And then you're looked down on. Oh, you got an adventure bike, but you never go in the dirt. Jeez, what's the matter with you?
Yep.
But in honor of this article, I did pick out the picture behind me, which is the classic cruiser rider being passed by a bicycle on the tail of the dragon.
Yeah, that is pretty funny.
How do you know he's not passing the cyclist?
Oh, no. The cyclist is going by him. Yeah, this one's been around for a while.
Well, cruisers are built to cruise, Tom.
If you've ever been behind a cruiser on the tail of the dragon, you know that bicyclist is going by him. And I say that in jest, in the way this article is written. But I don't know. Do you guys experience that at all, as far as any of this tribalism as to look down upon from one bike to another?
Coming from a guy who rides an ADV bike to Harley dealers all the time, yeah. But then I have to educate them. But I have my coach's shirt on, so I have to be very delicate about how I do it.
What do people say about?
Oh, they're just like, they come up to me, hey man, you need to get a real motorcycle. One of these got some power in it. I'm like, okay. And then just like, yeah, but I like going places you can't. What do you mean? I can go anywhere. I'm like, all right, let's go over. And I'm like, seriously, let's go over Mount Cheeher right now. Follow me on some trails. Oh, what do you mean? I was like, there's a couple washed out fire roads we could go down that are a lot of fun. Your 2.5 inches of suspension is going to do really good when you're, and then I point to like my skid plate that's got bangs and bumps all over it and be like, that's going to look really good going down your Harley right there. And then they're just, that's just what gets me. It's that whole, but they're dead serious. They come over, late on a Saturday and they've already gotten into, their personal stash, and it's just kind of, they're annoying. And I say this doesn't happen all the time. It has happened probably since I've been at the Harley dealers 3 times over the last 3 years. Somebody make a deal about it. I'm just like, I could take this bike, go anywhere that I want to in the world right now as it's set up. Your bike, yep. Which is, and I was like, and I could pick my bike up by myself if I needed to. It'd be heavy, but I could do it. You and your bike, after taking the spill that you'd probably take on that thing on a dirt road at a steep angle, your best bet is just to tumble it down the hill and hope you can pick it up at the bottom. But that's what I get. But so why do you think this is on the rise? Seemingly.
Tom?
Larry, your thought.
Well, I guess that there may be a part of the bigger picture that's going on of people kind of the population becoming segmented and there being more animosity between sectors of the population in general. However, I thinking about my own experience, and especially when I was in the hog group, it was interesting, and it was particularly interesting because a fair number of the guys in the group also had second bikes, and often their second bikes were BMWs or KTMs. And they were either the RTs for the BMWs or GSs, and they were some of them were sort of the more senior members of the group. So there wasn't there was some good-natured ribbing that would go on, but I think it was kind of accepted that these bikes were valid and in many ways superior to the rides. And one of the guys in the group who had a Goldwing, and he said that his Goldwing was his daily ride. He wouldn't ride his Harley daily because it wasn't reliable enough. So he used the Goldwing to commute, and he only rode the Harley on the group rides. So maybe it's a California thing, but I thought that there was sort of a more universal approach to riding in the group. However, one thing I did experience is that when I joined the group, I was riding a Sportster, and there was a kind of implication that the Sportster wasn't a real Harley, and that if I was serious about it, I would be moving up to, one of the baggers, and that was interesting to me. I didn't move up to a road glide or a street glide. I did get a switchback, which was based on the Dyna instead, and but it was a bagger. It had built-in hard bags, and it looked like a Road King. It was almost as big as a Road King. And I remember I did my first long group ride on it, and we ended up at a motel, and all the bikes were parked outside, and we were sitting outside imbibing a bit. And one of the guys in the group kind of strolled over, and he perused my bike, and he walked around it, and he looked at it, and then he turned to me and he said, "Nice bike." And from that, I understood that I had been accepted, or my bike had been accepted as a legitimate Harley. And so there is a little bit of that. It is joking and teasing on the one hand, but on the other hand, there is I think an undercurrent of seriousness that unless you've invested the time and money to get a big, expensive bike, you're not really serious about it. And I think there is a bit of that goes on amongst the groups that I have encountered. Now, a number of the guys in the group didn't have baggers. They had, one form of cruiser or another, and they were accepted and, into the group. But for the most part, I think that was the prevailing kind of ethic that, unless you had invested the money and the time to get a big bagger, you weren't really serious about it.
So do you guys find anything similar? So you've been talking primarily about the Harley, and I kind of lump all the cruisers together, although the Harley crowd has a mystique and I guess a culture that goes with it. But anything from the other subgroups, like the sport bike riders or the hardcore, like I said, the adventure ones that you got to take this up the side of a mountain if you're not riding.
Yeah, I can't speak to sport bike riders, honestly, because I'm in a different world. But they also, that seems to have respect. I've never had any sport bike rider say anything negative about me other than, oh, nice bike. And, asking me questions about it, but never anything derogatory. Other than, you should change that turn signal. It looks like crap. And I agree, but, so does everybody else. But for the most part, I look at, I have a KTM and a Yamaha, right? When I'm in a bunch of KTMs, that's, the orange Kool-Aid crew, we get a lot of that. And so when you're on the Yamaha, it's the wannabe BMW crew. You get a lot of that, but I think most of it is in jest. It's... you'll get that, and then you'll have somebody say, I used to have a Tenere in this ports and points in time where I wish I never got rid of it. The great bikes. But I went and got a BMW, so now they're, over there. The KTM if your bought KTM is dirty, they won't ever say anything negative or bad to you. So I just leave mine dirty. I don't believe in washing bikes, to be honest with you, but that's half true. But for the most part, I've never had anybody say anything bad, but I've witnessed a lot of, KTM hate on BMWs, especially when it comes to the 1200 GS versus the, at the time, 1190 from KTM. So, there's a lot of hate there, and just like, oh, yeah, that thing's too big, it's too heavy. And, I am literally sitting on a KTM, and I turn around and look at the guy, and I know the guy pretty well. And I look at him, and I was like, or you're just not that good of a rider, because the BMW guy could just kind of like, well, and I'm just like, or you're just not that good of a rider. And just, dude, leave him alone. But, my personal take is nobody knows how much you spent on your bike and how hard it was for you to come up with that amount of cash to get that bike. Some people look at, like you were saying, Larry, like, oh, a sports tour, that's not that much money. You're not really invested into it. Well, if the dude doesn't make that much, or he's got other expenses or family members with medical bills and he can't afford it, and he's struggling, and that's what he decided to do, and that's all he can do, he's got more invested than you do, right? Because it's not a dollar amount that determines how much you have invested in a bike, because investment doesn't necessarily mean just primarily monetary value. So, my thing, if you've thrown a leg over it and you're twisting the throttle, be safe, ride your ride. I'm sure we will still jest about certain types of motorcycles and the stereotypes that go along with them. We belong to a couple ourselves, like the people who think that KTM people are all in a cult. and I mean, it's just like
And,
the cult of KTM cult. I mean, you've heard of it, right, Tom?
let us not forget us scooter riders as well. So I live in two worlds as you do.
You're just wannabe motorcycle riders. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Right.
I probably poke. I poke some fun at sport bike riders because I one of the groups that I ride in on occasion is basically we've got everything. So there's no particular piece. I poke probably the most fun at cruiser riders just because of the area that I live in, the type of riding that's done. It's just they're fun to poke at and make fun of, and it's like you say, all in jest. Don't mean it.
Well,
at
but
all,
it's also that they get off their bikes and beat their chest.
Yeah, see,
And-
I haven't seen that.
I have.
Maybe you've seen this at the Harley deals. I mean, I've been to a Harley dealer once in the past 3 years, maybe. So it's just not a. And right now, the close friends that I had that rode Harleys, just they don't have that attitude. I guess it's. I look at it as to, I guess, the culture and the lack of gear that goes with the culture. That if I'm riding this bike, I can't, I've got to put the little beanie helmet on and the t-shirt and maybe jeans. But
you can't see me, but I'm raising my hand.
The uniform.
So, by the way,
Granted,
I
I
passed.
wear the spacesuit, so I'll give them that. All right, I'm on the BMW in the Power Ranger suit.
I passed. Now, to the riders' credit, to Harley riders' credit, I am seeing more today. Near 100 and something degree heat index feels like temperature, right? I saw more, and I would say almost all Harley riders in full face helmets, visor down, full gear, no jeans, and I passed probably 10. Now, I passed 3 sport bikes, all of those tennis shoes, shorts, and a t-shirt.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we're
Or I
making
love
progress.
The helmet and boots, but a t-shirt on, and they're and I've seen this crowd blazing down the interstate that in triple digits.
Yeah. Now I've seen. So we're making inroads on the Harley guys. Now we need to start working on the sport bike guys. So, but I've actually seen more Harley riders riding in full proper gear. If they're wearing jeans, you can pretty much tell that they're riding jeans, just from their build and structure. Sleeves, gloves, closed full face stuff. I mean, and so I'm glad to see that. And I really think that the culture that we're talking about is going away. It's kind of dying out, right? It's the.
I would hope so, because I mean, every brand of bike and style has their own club. There's the BMW clubs, and I right now I don't belong to any of the BMW clubs at the moment, but there is that attitude within the BMW clubs. I'm sure it exists in some of the other clubs that are brand specific or bike type specific. And I don't know, maybe it comes out of that area as far as that tribalism. You've got to be one of the group.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do want to say that while I was talking about Harleys not being able to go off road, that a properly set up Harley, and I have seen it and I was impressed by it, can do a lot. I would say that the average rider that I was talking to didn't have the skills to pull it off. So that was my joy.
Well, there is that YouTube video of a couple of guys on Harley baggers, and they are taking them on this really gnarly off-road trail.
Yeah.
And the guys were great. I mean, they were really super riders, and they managed to get these bikes through. And you can also make a Sportster, some of the models into a kind of scramble like bike to depending on how you outfit it, and that's something also that you can use that way. So, yeah, you can really modify. Of course, the big thing about Harleys is you can modify them to whatever your pleasure is, and that's part of the fun of it.
Yeah, yeah. All right, Larry, do you have anything to add to that? Because we need to get rolling.
Yeah, I was thinking of stuff. I'm trying to remember now what the hell I was thinking. In my club, most of the guys did gear up appropriately, and the majority of guys wore full face helmets. I would say that was the majority. There was, a significant minority that would wear more 3/4 or skid lids type helmets, and if the weather was warm, then some of the guys would be there in t-shirts, with their vests on, and jeans that were not, as far as I could tell, motorcycling jeans, and that was fairly common. But just as common, if not a little bit more, were guys that would be wearing, jackets and at least chaps over their jeans. So, in general, I would say that as far as the club went, people were very conscious about, outfitting and riding gear.
Well, cool. Well, I'm glad that that seems to be, at least on that crew. I like to see everybody riding with at least more protective gear, if you're not already.
Yeah,
all right.
Speaking of that, I ran across an article, which I don't think I included, but it was I think it was talking about the fact that I think Missouri was changing their helmet laws, and they were reducing them so that if you were a rider, I think over 26 or something like that, and you had medical insurance, then you could ride without a helmet.
Special rider on your medical insurance, wasn't it?
No, it was that if you had, well, what the article said was that if you had medical insurance that cover you.
And the reason they picked that magic number of 26 is that that's when you have to come off of daddy's insurance.
Yeah.
And get your own.
So that was interesting. But what I also found interesting was that they had a listing of what all the states' requirements were, and I didn't note it in detail, but just going down the list, it looked like roughly half of the states required helmets for all riders, and roughly half of the states did not. And that surprised me a bit. I didn't realize that so many states either had never passed helmet laws or had rescinded them. But that is the case. It looks like the requirement for helmets is actually on the downside in terms of state requirements, and obviously depending on your orientation, that's either good news or bad news.
All right.
Depends on the tribe you're in.
Yeah, we're gonna switch. Go ahead and switch and talk very quickly about a few other things. Just more headliner stuff. Looks like the Long Way Up series is going to be initially screened on Apple TV. No advertisements or dates are known or set yet, but it has come out that Apple TV has, I think, the initial broadcasting streaming service rights to it. And you can find that they've actually got some images in some of the Apple TV promos of Ewan's bearded look that he gets when he goes on these trips. And we all know all the setup and about the bikes and the support crew. We've talked about that at nauseam in the past. But looks like when it does come out, it's going to be on Apple TV, which I think is unfortunate because not a lot of people are going to have access to it. And I'm sure eventually it'll make its way to other services. But we'll have to just wait and see.
Well, this is one of the things that I'm not clear about. This is that it is Apple TV is going to be showing the show, but is it the paid subscription to Apple TV, or is it just that you need to use the app, or if you have the
Yeah,
Apple
it's probably
TV?
the pay. It's Apple TV Plus, yeah, which
Oh, it doesn't say
think-
Plus.
It doesn't
that's
say
the thing.
plus.
Yeah, it says
Oh.
Apple TV. So there's a possibility that you may not actually have to subscribe, but just that you just may need to use the app or
Yeah,
the
because
device.
I know they have a streaming service now, and I didn't even realize I bought a new Apple PC a couple of months ago and didn't even realize I got a year's worth of the
Apple
Apple
TV.
TV Plus.
It will be Apple TV streaming service.
So
Yeah.
you may not have to actually pay for the opportunity to view it.
So that one runs, I think, $5 a month. So if $5 is worth it to you to see the show.
So the streaming, so even the Apple TV.
Well, you've got to buy the Apple TV device.
No, you
but
don't.
No,
No, you don't. You can use the you can use the app if you have an Apple device, an iPhone or an iPad, or or a Mac. You can actually just download the app and use that to stream.
And for those of us who don't, you gotta
Well, you should.
no, you shouldn't. No. Anyway,
Talk about tribes.
yeah,
when they
really.
they do say Apple TV streaming service. I am going to guess that they don't. In Visor Down, they didn't call it correctly. That they're referring to Apple TV Plus.
All right.
I
well,
would
you
lay
get it right.
money on that one, and they just called it streaming service.
Well, we kind of run out of time to talk about a couple of the other articles, but it's stuff that I think we should mention next week for sure. With the Swiss news and Indian. But
Yeah.
I want to make sure we give Larry plenty of time to do a proper paddock today. Let him dust off the old cobwebs, get his announcer color commentary or voice going. And with that, we head over to the paddock. Vroom, vroom.
So yes, we'll talk about air conditioning on motorcycles next week.
Well, no, it's
Stay
air
tuned.
conditioned seats.
Air conditioning on motorcycles next week. We'll talk about that's the lead in. That's the hook that's supposed to get people to listen. Okay, but we're talking about motorcycle racing this week. That's right, people. We've had motorcycle racing, and it's been good racing, I have to say. First up, we had flat track racing this week. Volusia Racing at the Volusia racetrack, and this was an interesting race, to say the least. Race started. Mies was starting off at the pole position, and then Carver was in second place. The two of them went at it right from the start, and they bumped and grinded as is their wont in flat track. And unfortunately, Carver went down, and the red flag came out, and they had a restart. And in the restart, Mies just jumped into the lead, and he stayed in the lead for the entire race. I have to just mention that this is secondhand because the race is only going to be broadcast by NBC, I think, on Wednesday. So on Wednesday, I'll actually get to see the actual race, and I can report it to you. I thought maybe I had gotten around it because there was a YouTube video of the race, but it turns out that they had everything, all of the races, except for the Premier Twins class, which was this race. So I can't report on it in terms of my first person, but it apparently was a pretty exciting beginning. But Mies jumped out, and it was a foregone conclusion as far as him winning the race. However, other podium positions were hotly contested. Brian Bauman, who was the champion last year, did manage to jump into second place and keep it. And Slamming Sammy Halbert took third place. He was a Harley rider last year, but this year he's riding an Indian. And I should mention that the top 6 places in the race went to Indians. So looks like India is still going to be dominant, even though Harley supposedly has revamped their program and is intending to be more competitive. Mies is hot to regain his championship standing, and this first race, if this first race is any example, he is on track to do so this year. So we'll have to see how it goes. But it was an exciting race at the beginning, and certainly the racing for second and third place was exciting, and that may be the way it goes in American Flat Track this year. Moving on to MotoGP, they raced in Jerez. I've been pronouncing it Jerez or Jerez, but apparently it's pronounced Jerez. It's a racetrack in Spain. And this is the site for this week's and next week's racing. And this race was full of twists and turns. It was a tough condition to begin with. The track temperature was 50 degrees centigrade, which is something like 120 degrees Fahrenheit. And so it was hot there. In addition, they're racing on a new Michelin rear tire, and this rear tire with a firmer sidewall apparently is going to, or is thought to be more favorable to bikes that are able, that have to have greater turning ability. So the Yamahas would benefit from the stiffer sidewall. They'll be able to go faster into turns and accelerate out faster. It may be less advantageous to the bikes that have the straight ahead acceleration, the Ducatis and the Hondas. But the advantage is marginal, but may or may not be significant. We'll have to see. In this race, there was some indication that perhaps it was helpful. However, this track is not, it doesn't have long straightaways anyway, and is not as conducive for the faster bikes. So in terms of the starting grid, Quartararo had the fastest qualifying time, and he was at the pole position. This is not unusual. Quartararo was really fast last year, and he garnered a number of pole positions, particularly in the last half of the year. He didn't, however, wasn't able to translate that into victories. Maverick Vinales was almost as fast. He took second place, and of course, Marc Marquez was in third. Interestingly, behind them, the second row of the grid was full of the promising new riders. Bagnaia, who rides on the Pramac Ducati, and Miller, also on the Pramac, and Paulo Espargaro on the KTM was behind them. And these are three young riders that are thought to be really up and coming, and the future, part of the future of MotoGP. Miller will be joining Ducati next year as one of the factory riders. Well, race starts, and Maverick jumps into the lead. He had a great start, and although he somewhat mysteriously, he and the other Yamaha rider, Valentino, chose to have a soft. They chose to have a soft front and the soft rear. Everybody else had gone for a hard front and a soft rear, and with the hot track conditions, it was thought that a soft tire would not hold up through the whole race. So it was, everybody else was taking, as I say, the hard front, but Maverick and Rossi chose the soft. In the beginning, maybe it was to his advantage because he did jump into the lead. But the question was how long he could hold it. And it turns out that it wasn't that long, because Marquez was having the fastest lap times, and he was able to move into first place and easily distance himself from Vinales and Quartararo. However, a near fatal mistake in one of the turns, and this is one of Marquez's magic. He was leaning over something like 65 degrees, and he lost traction on the front tire. The bike started to go down. Marquez was riding on his elbow, and he managed to right the bike. However, it caused him to ride into the gravel. He rode into the gravel, and he rode out of the gravel. He managed to keep the bike upright throughout the whole thing, and he got back on the track. And now he was in last place and trying to catch up to the group. But it was just one of Marquez's amazing corrections that he was able to keep the bike up and get back on the track. But there was more to come from him. Meanwhile, Vinales goes into first place. But now he has to hold off a storming Quartararo, who fairly easily passes him and starts to put distance of his own up in first place, from first place to second. Meanwhile, Dovizioso, riding one of the factory Ducatis, is moving steadily up from his starting place in seventh. But the drama intensifies because Marquez is storming up from last place. He's moving through the pack like a knife through butter. And in not too long a time, he's in third place, and he's threatening to take back the lead. This was one of the most phenomenal rides you or I or anybody has ever seen, and it really just shows both the talent of Marquez and his ability to use the Honda to its maximum effect. His brother, Alex, was at the back of the peloton of the pack, and stayed there for most of the race. But Marquez was just unbelievable. 4 laps to go. Marquez is in third place, and around turn 3, he's right on Vinales, threatening to take the second place. And somewhat mysteriously, he loses traction in his rear tire, and he high sides, and a really vicious high side. The bike just snaps him off the seat. He goes flying. The bike goes flying, and he lands hard and rolls several times, the bike bumping him as he's doing so. And when he gets up, he's holding his right arm, and it isn't looking that good. Turns out he has a broken arm, a broken humerus, and he's probably going to be out at least for the next race, and probably he's going to be out of contention for the championship in this shortened and more intensified season. So we'll have to see about that, but this was really unfortunate for Marquez, and I think will make the rest of the season quite interesting in terms of how things go. But meanwhile, in this race, Quartararo was easily holding on to first place, and took it. This is his first MotoGP win, one that everybody expected for him to happen last year, but it did happen this year. Vinales, meanwhile, comes in what may be a disappointing second place for him, as everybody was looking for him to be the dominant force for Yamaha this year. Dovizioso managed to move up from 7th place, and he grabbed 3rd, and that was a decent finish for him. He made a very consistent ride, which is sort of one of his trademarks, and very difficult conditions, especially for the Ducatis that weren't able to really exercise their full power on this racetrack. Jack Miller took a disappointing 4th for him, as I think for most of the race he was thinking that he would have a podium finish, and it wasn't until the last third of the race that, as I said, Dovizioso managed to move up and pass him. He kind of faded a bit in the latter part of the race. Espargaro on the factory KTM finished 5th, and this was a good showing for him and for KTM, and shows, I think, this year that KTM is fielding a very competitive bike, and he's a competitive rider, and he will be moving up to Honda next year. So I think he has motivation to look good on the KTMs this year. So it was a really interesting race, and overall, I was left with the impression that as good as Vinales and Quartararo are on the Yamahas so far, and they both were the fastest in practice and in qualifying, on the track, it still looks like they can't match Marquez. Marquez was just dominant on the track, taking the fastest track times both before and after his first crash. And I'm expecting that when he does come back, that he will be able to continue to dominate. But it's just unclear as to when he'll be able to do that. And the longer it takes, of course, the fewer points he'll be able to accumulate towards the championship. The other thing about the race that seemed noteworthy to me is that Valentino just still does not look competitive, even though he's riding the same Yamaha that Vinales is, and Vinales is doing pretty well on it. And Quartararo as well is riding a somewhat older version of the Yamaha, and he's obviously doing very well on it. So the fact that Rossi started out, I think, in 9th place and was not competitive in the race so far is a little disappointing. I was hoping that he would look good this year and that this would be a springboard for him next year when he is going to be off of the factory team, but he is still planning to ride, and I'd love for him to be a podium finisher at least, and at least competing for first place and if not the championship. So that was for me somewhat disappointing. Track conditions are going to remain difficult with the high temperatures and the new Michelin rear tire to contend with. And we'll see how the teams adapt to that, next week, which will also be in WRF. And so I'm looking forward to that. So that's the racing for this week. It was it was a fun week. It's great to have the racing back. Really kind of gets my juices going, and I'm looking forward to reporting on it on a weekly basis because this is going to be an intense season. So back to you, Kevin.
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up. As always, you did an excellent job providing color to the races that only you can. So let's go ahead and start closing out the show. One thing we didn't do today that we need to go ahead and do is thank our Throttled crew members. Thank you guys all for what you do to help the show stay on the air, to be honest. So thank you very much for all of that. If you would like to help support the show, if you get some value for the show and you want to give back a little bit, please go to throttledpodcast.com, scroll to the bottom, click on the Patreon logo, and we can get you signed up. And we would appreciate any kind of help that you guys can give. Now, moving on to closing down things. Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter at Throttle Show, Instagram Throttle Show, and Facebook Throttle Podcast. We do broadcast live Sundays at around 7:30 Central. And before that, we post up on Twitter and Facebook the YouTube link that we'll be using for that evening. So sign up for those and follow along. Don't forget, though, on the Facebook and Twitter site, you can go back and rewatch the live broadcast of this at any time. If you'd rather do that, we would appreciate it. We'd also appreciate if you do go to the YouTube page and subscribe and like any videos that you see. This always helps us out, just kind of lets us know what's going on and if you're liking what we're doing or not. Add comments. Love to hear back from you guys. Speaking of comments, you can write us in Facebook. You can write us in Facebook comments. You can also send us an email, feedback@throttledpodcast.com, or go to the website, throttledpodcast.com. Click on the contact tab and fill it out. We get it in the same mailbox. I think I got through everything there. So, gentlemen, great show tonight. Tom, you want to sign off first for us?
Absolutely. So good conversation. Thanks, everybody. And ride safe, get out and ride. Hopefully, if you are in the southeast, actually in most of the eastern part of the country, the heat's not too oppressive for you. But go ride in the morning and get done before it gets too bad. But yeah, had a good week. See everybody next weekend.
Larry.
Well, it's been fun, guys. A great chat as always, and I'm looking forward to more reporting on the racing and more talk about my rides. So, in the meantime, make sure that you ride safe, stay healthy, and ride your own ride.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us tonight. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much. Everybody in the live stream. Thank you all for being there. Wonderful chat that you guys have following along with us. If you get out there and ride, we ask you to ride safe, and we will see you all next week. Bye, everybody. All right, everybody in the live stream, thanks so much. You guys have a great night. As always, you kept it lively and kept us on point. We appreciate the assist. Lord knows that we need it from time to time. So you guys have a great evening. We'll see you all next week. Be safe out there. We'll see you guys. Cool.